All right, time for our Crime Time segment. This is where we take a look at criminal stories from around the nation and then bring in our own experts to get some perspective and insight into these stories. And joining us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, retired LAPD sergeant. She started with the LAPD in 1980, worked in patrol and specialized units, including gangs. She's also an author, the author of Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate. Also with us, retired director of the San Diego PD Crime Lab, Jennifer Shen. Jennifer has 30 years of experience with law enforcement as a forensic scientist. She's an expert in police procedure regarding forensic evidence collection, preservation, processing, and storage, and spent 15 years working on active crime scenes. Sergeant and Jennifer, great to have you both here tonight. Let's get right to our first story from WTVF in Nashville, Tennessee. An Uber driver escapes a kidnapping.
I took my seatbelt off. I think I did like this and grabbed the phone. And in that second, that's when I opened the door and I jumped.
Carolina Vargas says she had no choice but to bail out of her Ford Explorer at 60 miles per hour on a highway in Georgia.
I just remember feeling like a fire, like a ball of fire right here. And I think this is where the tire drove over me.
Vargas says she was trying to escape this man who police have identified as Christopher Miller. She drives Uber out of Nashville and says Miller, a truck driver, hired her to take him to a hotel all the way in Cleveland, Tennessee, while mechanics worked on his rig. Nothing happened on that trip, but then last Friday, Vargas says Miller called asking her to come get him for a return trip to Nashville to get his truck. This time, she says, he pulled a knife.
I didn't do anything like to trigger him for anything. He just got close to me. He had the knife. He put it here. And he said, okay, now you're going to do what I say.
Vargas says Miller directed her to drive south. She begged him to let her go and then realized her only choice was to jump from the speeding SUV.
I didn't break one bone. And I'm so grateful to be alive, to be honest. I couldn't believe everything was so fast.
Investigators say Miller, the suspect, escaped in Vargas's Explorer. A Good Samaritan stopped to help Vargas on the shoulder of the road and called police.
Unbelievable. How can drivers stay safe? This is a difficult one, and I want to start with you, Sergeant Dorsey. Let's start with a little bit of advice for folks. There's a lot of folks do this, Uber driving and are, making money, working hard, trying to just make a living here.
So no matter what we do, whether it's driving as an Uber operator or just going to the theater, we live in a time now where we have to have a plan B. We have to have an alternative just in the event that something goes sideways. And so thank goodness this young lady survived. I wish she would have slowed down maybe to about 45 before she bailed out. But what I'd like to know is how was he able to maintain control of her car if she jumped out at 60 and not get involved in a traffic collision? So he's an opportunist. He saw an opportunity and he took advantage. So note to self, have a plan always, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, you feel so bad because, she's not in great shape, but, no broken bones, amazingly. Jennifer Shen, I want to focus on the other part of this story, which is, okay, this guy now is a suspect in a very serious crime. It seems we've got a very contained crime scene here. Should be able to get a lot of evidence just to, kind of confirm her story and to have enough evidence to put this guy in prison.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I also want to echo that the fact that she survived this was amazing. And the courage it must have taken to jump out of that car is just incredible. But the type of evidence we can find in the crime scene, which is the car, is we're looking for DNA, we'll be looking for fingerprints, we can look for anything that the suspect left behind. Certainly we would be looking for that knife, and all of those things are going to serve to corroborate her story. And these are very, very serious crimes because she easily could have died taking that risk and jumping out of a car moving at 60 miles an hour. So there is a lot of forensic work that we could do to corroborate that story and make sure that this person goes to jail.
Yeah, thank goodness again that she's okay. Absolutely amazing. All right, next story comes from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Released some video, some inmates purposely spreading the coronavirus.
What you're going to see is surveillance video, and this surveillance video is going to show inmates deliberately attempting to infect themselves with the COVID-19 virus. And you're going to see 3 different ways. This is you see that's a hot water dispenser there. They're going to be sharing swigs from the same bottle of water. Under normal circumstances, no one would do that anyway, to begin with, particularly when everyone has the same access to the water and to all the different supplies on their own individual. So no one shares this. But now they're sharing the hot water from the dispenser, the same bottle. And right after this video was taken, a nurse came up to take temperatures. And with the hot water, they were trying to falsely elevate their temperature readings to generate a symptom for COVID-19. Now this is another one, and you can see now they're going to use a mask, and it's going to pop up here, and they're also use that styrofoam cup, and they're going to share the styrofoam cup. Same process they did with the water bottle, but now they're also sniffing out of a common mask. I don't know, it's sad to think that someone deliberately tried to expose himself to COVID-19. As a result of this behavior, from this particular module, 21 inmates tested positive for COVID-19 within a week of these videos being taken. And that is problematic, because somehow there was some mistaken belief among the inmate population that if they tested positive, that there was a way to force our hand and somehow release more inmates out of our jail environment. And that's not going to happen.
All right, is there any way, and I don't know if it's possible, is there any way how this could be prevented? Jennifer Shen, I'll start with you. Any thoughts about how you could stop these inmates from purposely trying to contaminate one another and spread COVID-19 in the jail?
Well, I just can't imagine trying to give yourself this virus, because it certainly can have very terrible consequences, and people who have it and survive it don't necessarily enjoy it. So, I mean, all you really could do is to do the things that we're all doing, is be socially distancing the inmates, and that would require probably a lot. If you're going to have these sorts of social type gatherings in these larger rooms, it would require masks and some personal protective gear, plus we would have to have more officers there to make sure they're staying 6 feet apart. I mean, they would just honestly have to do the social distancing, or they would have to stop being allowed to be in these social situations where there's several inmates all together, which, you know, certainly would breed opportunities for this sort of thing.
Yeah, Sergeant, do you think we have to lock them down? You know, the way we're shutting our houses, right, where we can go out to the store and stuff, but maybe you have to lock them. This, to me, criminals always looking for an angle. And I don't know if there's any way you're going to stop them if they're allowed to interact with one another. They're seeing this as their get out of jail free COVID card.
Right. And listen, if sense were common, everyone would have it. And so I imagine they've probably been watching TV and know that, you know, if you're rich and white and well connected, you could get out. Now, I don't think any of them are that, but there certainly are penalties when you violate prison rules. And so maybe they need to have some of those things taken away from them. Telephone calls, being able to go to the canteen, being able to congregate. Those are all measures that can be used disciplinary wise to prevent them maybe going forward from engaging in this kind of crazy activity.
Yeah, extremely dangerous. But then again, committing crimes, also a dangerous business. All right, when we come back, we've got a violent arrest caught on camera that we're going to show you out of Buffalo, and we'll continue our discussion with our experts tonight. Crime Time continues.
They don't resist. All that for no reason. For no reason. for nothing. Look how you were treating him. Do you see how it started?
All right, police and an arrest and a camera, and you know what's next, right? People, a lot of people get outraged when they see any sort of police arrest, but what we do here during our Crime Time segment is break it down and get the perspective of some folks who have done the work, understand the world of law enforcement. With me tonight still, Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, retired from the LAPD, and Jennifer Shen, former director of the crime lab out in San Diego, California. Next story, WKBW, Buffalo, New York. Violent arrest caught on camera.
It's a confrontation caught on cell phone video. A Buffalo police officer punching a man in the face as the suspect is on the ground. Officers attempting to handcuff him. The entire incident caught on cell phone video and now under investigation by the Buffalo Police Department Internal Affairs Unit. But how did we get here? Police tell me it was Sunday when the suspect was driving the wrong way on Madison Street on the city's east side. Madison is a one-way street. Police happened to be driving the right way down the street when they pulled the suspect over. Investigators say they discovered he was also driving without a license. A police source tells me officers smelled a strong odor of marijuana and asked the man to step out of the car. Police say when they attempted to pat him down, he began to tense up and became combative. In an attempt to handcuff the suspect, police say the man was taken down to the ground. A source also says the suspect had drugs on him and tried to destroy the drugs while officers tried handcuffing him. You can hear the officer say, "Let it go." Then you can hear a woman off camera telling the man to stop resisting.
They don't resist. All that for no reason. For no reason? Nothing. For nothing. For nothing. Look how you were treating him. Do you see how it started?
Is this excessive force? That's the question. The officer involved is a 3-year veteran of the force. He is currently still on the job. A source tells me this suspect has had multiple arrests in the past, including for firearms. The suspect is facing a number of charges, including destroying physical evidence and resisting arrest. The Buffalo Police Advisory Board is calling for a full investigation into this incident and is also calling for the officers involved to be suspended while that investigation takes place. The Buffalo Police Department tells me it's already reviewing this incident, the cell phone video, as well as the body camera video from the officers involved.
Yeah, those cell phone videos, anytime anyone is resisting, they never look good. But the question is this excessive force? Sergeant Dorsey, from your viewing of this video and a little bit of the backstory, what's your take?
So yeah, as a patrol supervisor, that was excessive. I would have a problem if my officers were punishing someone because they couldn't gain control and get compliance. We're taught grappling techniques, wrist locks, twist locks. We have mace and other things that we can use. Punching someone in the head because they're not cooperating is inappropriate. You don't know how much pressure or how much impact this man's head could take before you do serious damage. And so you take them into custody the way that you're trained and taught. You don't punish them. And they're going to have to explain. And listen, the fact that this young man has a prior arrest has nothing to do with nothing. I get why they said that. They want to dirty him up. But in this particular instance, hitting him in the head is not going to stop him from destroying evidence if, in fact, that's what he was doing.
Jennifer Shen, your thoughts on this video, this arrest, and the reaction to it all?
Well, I can understand the reaction to it all, and I'm really happy they're going to take a look at that body camera video that the officers were wearing, because I think it's really good to get lots of different perspectives. I mean, honestly, I don't know how officers do their job. They get put in these situations where they're very dangerous, and they may have known before they stopped him that he had several prior arrests and that he had had some arrests with firearms. And so that's going to amp them up a little bit. I agree there's no time really that you should be punching someone in the head. And I agree officers get so much training about how to take people down without hurting them. And it certainly looked like they were hurting this guy. But it's really tough for me to put myself in those officers' positions because it's just such a dangerous job, and they're faced with these sorts of things on a daily basis.
Yeah, faced with confrontations a lot of time, even at perhaps a Waffle Shop. That's our next story. Comes from the Fresno Police Department. They've released the body cam, A Waffle Shop customer ends up getting arrested.
How you doing?
Damn.
Good morning, y'all.
Friends here. As you see, code enforcement come out here again. Customers are actually trying to come and say they need to wait in line like everybody else.
All right.
Then we got.
All right, folks. Make away.
Why? They don't have to let you in.
They don't have
to let you in. No, we've been waiting for hours. We do not. We've been waiting for hours.
Don't interfere with my job, okay? Do not interfere.
What?
For interfering, okay?
I ain't interfering.
Make away, folks. Make away.
So I'm not here. What are you talking about?
Make away. Make away. Clear away. Clear away.
Hey!
Put your hand back for me. Put your hand behind your back for me. Partner, put your hand behind your back for me.
You want to change somebody? Get your whole ass out of here now.
Okay. That's relax.
But you did assault me. I didn't do anything. Oh my God. Get that off.
Excuse me. Get out of the way, man. I'll take you to jail too. Let's go. Over here, sir.
That's a violation of civil rights, you stupid bastard.
Man, let go of him.
No, he's my husband.
I understand that, okay? I understand that. Okay?
He has served 4 tours in Vietnam. He's a diabetic. He has a heart problem.
Okay?
You pushed your way through a crowd you had no right to be in. You
Have a seat for me.
Will you loosen it?
I will, just a second.
then arrest you, Dad. We're in front of the Waffle Shop.
Half a son of a bitch.
I gotta call my attorney.
Come and take me to jail.
Step back for a second, ma'am.
I'll stay right here.
Have a seat for me.
We are living in different times. My question is, was this necessary? I just want to give you a little more of the backstory here. There was a local shutdown order in Fresno, and the Waffle Shop opened. A bunch of folks wanted to support the local business, so they went to the Waffle Shop, but then the police showed up and they were trying to enforce the shutdown order, and the folks were gathered in front trying to block entry into the Waffle Shop. So that's the backstory. He was handcuffed, detained, but ultimately released. But the question, this world we're living in now, Jennifer Shen, do you think this was necessary?
You know, watching that particular video, it just makes me really sad. And I, you know, as a citizen who's living through the quarantine, as a person who can't do the things that I'm used to doing, and as a person who knows people who are really suffering economically from this, I completely get what those people were doing. I understand their frustration. I understand that they want to be able to stand up for small businesses and really make a point that this is terribly hard for people. As a person who's been in law enforcement for 30 years, I am very impressed with that police officer, the calmness he had. He faced a crowd, he faced belligerence, he faced having to arrest a Vietnam veteran who had a really upset wife. He was very calm about that. But the problem here is that the police officers are being put in this position by our politicians. They have to do their job. And instead of doing things like hunting down rapists and, finding murderers and, saving people from being hit by drunk drivers, they're doing this sort of thing. And it's just a terrible position for them to be in. And it just hurts my heart every time I see something like this.
Sergeant Dorsey, I'll give you the final word on this. I mean, the world has changed so much in the last month and a half.
So listen, officers have a job to do, and the community doesn't get to tell us how to do it. And the officers showed great restraint. I think it's because they looked a lot like him. They were able to show that restraint and ultimately release this guy, because I promise you, if he looked like me, he would have gone to jail and probably would have been gone through the hospital ward because he would have been beaten up. But you can't tell a police officer that they don't have a right to be somewhere. You cannot agree. There's a policy and a procedure in place. If you don't agree with the way that an officer is conducting himself, but to forbid an officer from doing his job, there's a penal code section for that. And he should have gone to jail, because when he stood in the officer's way, he knew he had ailments, infirmities, and he knew that he was a Vietnam vet. So I have no sympathy for that kind of disrespect.
Sergeant Dorsey, Jennifer Shen, great to have you on the program tonight. Always enjoy your insight into these stories. Please come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.